So it's recording. Good evening to all the students, participants, and good evening to our speaker today, Dr. Rajeeb Lochan Behera. He is the faculty of the Department of Philosophy and Religion at Banaras Hindu University, popularly we call BHU, Banaras. He was previously working as a faculty in the PG Department of Philosophy, Utkal University, Banibihar, Bhubaneswar. He did masters in philosophy from Utkal University. He did his research program, MPhil, PhD, and postdoctorate in philosophy from Central University of Hyderabad, the institution where I was also the part. I did my MA and MPhil there. So thereby I was the senior to Dr. Behera. So we know, we are very much personally close. So his area of specializations are analytical philosophy, philosophy of language, philosophy of mind, critical discourse analysis, etc. His area of competence are Indian philosophy, philosophy of religion, epistemology, metaphysics, applied ethics, and critical thinking. So he has published books, he has published articles, various articles in various journals, and the most notable work of him at this age is a book titled The Verification Theory of Meaning, a Conian Perspective. It was published by an international publisher in 2015. Dr. Behera has been awarded a project by the Institution of Eminence Seed Grant at the Banaras Hindu University in 2022. The title of the project was The Role of Faith in Interreligious Friendshipness and Religious Fanaticism. So Dr. Behera is the lifetime member of several academic associations such as British Wittgenstein Society, Indian Philosophical Congress, Indian Academician and Research Association, International Society for Philosophers, Social Science and Humanities Research Association, Indian Association for the Study of Religion, and All Odisha Philosophy Association. That's a huge number. So he is a life member of all these association. So this speaks, uh, how much he is academically oriented and connected with it. So today I requested him to speak on Fanon. In fact, it is the part of a course that I am right now dealing for the third semester of PG students in our university, Sambalpur University. And the title of that course is Contemporary Political Thought. And this is the second part of this first module, that is Fanon, Phenomenology of Colonialism. So I have not read Fanon, frankly saying. I seriously felt that a philosophy student can better explain Fanon. Mostly Fanon is taught as a part of political philosophy or philosophy. So that's why I requested Dr. Behera to make us understand uh, the concept of colonialism and uh, related concept to colonialism of Fanon. Phenomenology basically means it is the knowledge by experience. So how Fanon has experienced a phenomena called colonialism, and how he has, derived theories, centering to this concept of, colonialism. So who is this Fanon? I think if you can have a Google search, you can find that Fanon was one of few extraordinary thinkers supporting the decolonization struggles occurring after the World War II or Second World War. His brief life, he born on 1925, he died on 1961. That's a very small span of time he lived on this earth. His brief life was notable both for his wholehearted engagement in the independent struggle of Algerian people waged against France, right? His writings has become central text of African thought. So you can have a Google search about Fanon. You can know who is Fanon and what are the works he has written. But today, the speaker will let us know. I mean, Fanon has written many books. If you read all the books, you will find his notion or concept of colonialism. So I hope that today's speaker has gone through the works of Fanon, and today's speaker, you know, uh, let me say it. One of the important work of Fanon is the Black Skin and White Mask, and in that work, Fanon declares that he wants the enslavement of men by men ceases forever. And another important work, Wretched of Art, in that work, Fanon considers colonialism is a violence in its natural state, and it will only yield when confronted with a greater violence. So one can feel uh, the kind of attitude Fanon was having towards, colonialism. So the speaker will deal everything. Since in the beginning I said that I have not read Fanon, so I should not speak much on him. So certainly the speaker will demonstrate the Fanonian colonialism. He will outline the central features of the psychology of domination. He will primarily focus on double consciousness, revolutionary psychiatry, violence, domination, racism, colonialism, radical sociogency, and master slavery hierarchy. So, and a request to today's speaker is that uh, the speaker is from the philosophy department, and all the participants they are from the political science background. So it is a request to the speaker to you know make things easy for the participant, so that participant can get a idea, a sense about Fanon's philosophy or Fanon's understanding of colonialism. So with this introduction, I'm thankful to Dr. Behera, and I'm so happy that for the first time I will listen him. So I'm very much excited. So Dr. Behera, I am with you with this introduction. I welcome you once again, and I request you to start your deliberation on this topic. So thank you, Dr. Behera. You can start right now.
At the very outset, I convey my best regards to uh, Dr. Himanshu Shekhar Mishra Bhai, as well as the professor, and respected to all the participants, that means the professors, those who have engaged here now, and my dear student friends. As you know that I am from philosophy department, and I am going to deal the situation from political science, the aspect of political science in which an important, you can say, philosopher as well as political scientist, Frantz Fanon, who has provided many theories and tried to develop his theory called phenomenology of colonialism. This is very interesting. And firstly, before going to details about his phenomenology of colonialism, it is interesting to know some background of the notion phenomenology, how phenomenology and colonialism has interconnected, and the French Fanon has introduced and developed and explored the view, which is more and most important for the society and uh, to evaluate the social value of a being. So, firstly, I can say uh, I can read his quote from his book, Black Skin and White Mask. I. the men of color want only this. The tool never possesses the man that the enslavement of man by man ceases forever. And colonialism is violence in its natural state, and it will only yield when confronted with greater violence. It is written in his book, The Rust of the Earth. As we know that people often haul stones, steal, and insult at one another in order to own, to control, to secure privileges. In pursuit of these aims, reason is lost. Reason is lost sight of. Passions run high, and morality is conveniently slept and proclaimed for self vindication. Wars are fraught, societies disrupted, cultures dislocated, families uprooted, and psyche ruptured. In reality, few human encounters are exempt from repressions of one kind of another, one kind or another. For by virtue of our race, sex, and class, each of us happens to be a victim and or perpetrator of subjections. Racism, sexism, and class expressions are the most salient form of domination. Domination in the current world. But there also exists tyranny on the ground of religious belief, political affiliation, national origin, age, and physical, mental handicap. Although we know a great deal about the economics and politics of cruelty, the psychology of subjugation is abundant and, at best, indirectly introduced as a topic entitled Frantz, Fanon, and the Critique of Colonialism, a phenomenological approach. This is not to imply that psychologists among whom, in the generic sense, I include psychiatrists as did Frantz Fanon, is indifferent spectators in the history and status quo of domination. My aim here is to demonstrate the Fanonian colonialism and outlines the central features in the psychology of domination. I will focus primarily on double consciousness, revolutionary psychiatric, violence, domination, racism, and colonialism, and secondarily on radical sociogency, master slavery hierarchy. And the conclusion would be closest to the sympathetic towards phenomenological approach of Fanon's colonialism, as he claims that man is motion towards the world and towards his like, a movement of violence which leads now come for the basic or fundamental uh, background, you can say, something we have to know about what phenomenology is about. It is a kind of study about human experience, and it is a method of inquiry is used to, and this method we use to understand the lived world of human being at a conscious level. It is the way things present themselves to us in and through experience. And it is not to get lost in abstract thought models. And it is not technical language, rather to keep eyes on what is going on around us. And it is also meant as a wake-up call. Don't be satisfied with mere words. Turn back to the experiences that these words are meant to express. Check whether your concepts, whether your models actually grasp the phenomena in need of explanation or not. So now I will give some example of the phenomenologists what they have done, and then all of a sudden I'll proceed towards the thinker to whom we have intended in this talk. So firstly, as you know, the phenomenology is coined by a German mathematician as well as philosopher Edmund Husserl in his work Philosophy of Arithmetic's Logical Investigations. His, his main motto was the philosophical movement to the matters themselves. His method pertains the four necessary steps: bracketing, intuiting, analyzing, and describing. His approach of phenomenology is considered as descriptive phenomenology, while the interpretive approach is by Martin Heidegger. His key work is Being and Time. So according to Husserl's approach, phenomenology is the study of lived experience of human being at the conscious level of understanding, while Heidegger's approach is interpretive hermeneutic phenomenology. Moreover, both the approaches provides a wide meaning to the lived experiences under study as the core of phenomenological research is to know about the phenomena under study through consciousness. First, it implies that phenomenology is a method of inquiry to educate our own vision, to define our position, to broaden how we see the world around us, and to study the lived experiences at deeper level. There are another two important phenomenologists like Jean-Paul Sartre and Merleau-Ponty. Sartre's key work is Being and Nothingness and the critique of dialectical reason, etc. Sartre has also written a Nausea. He talked about experience about ordinary object and sense of our own freedom. Phenomenological ontology, consciousness is a consciousness of object and consciousness of itself, object being for itself. And then Merleau-Ponty has written a book, Phenomenology of Perception and the Structure of Behavior, the vision and the visible and the invisible, etc. It is very interestingly, he says that consciousness is embodied and equally body is infused with consciousness. So here the world and the condition of the world both are entertained. So it is very interesting to know that how our mind and consciousness and you can say our psychology used. Basically, I want to stress on certain part here about these four important phenomenologists. Intentionality model of mind. What is that? That is something you can say we believe something, we truly believe something about, and what is the next step towards your action? What we believe, truly believe, we don't do that all of a sudden. There are several steps towards our action. And then there is a consequence of action. You can evaluate your life on the basis of the consequence of action. So firstly, we have to believe something and that should be justified. That's true belief. Then what is the next step? You have to choose something. And that choose, that is, you have to include your choice, and you have to include your attitude. And then you will try to perform that. So that is called action. And then in the state of action, what you do? In the action, if your intentionality is included with your action, then what will happen? There is possibility of success. There is possibility of success. It is upward. And if your action is, it is called plus action, positive action. And the negative action, it is accident. It's happened accidentally. Accidentally happened because of ownership. If you want to take ownership, then what will happen? You have to face certain problem. There is a possibility of failure because you have to face many problems. You have to come across many hurdles and junctures. Therefore, it is downward. The action's motion is downward. Therefore, it is considered as negative action. So let us come go forward, it is about our basic concept here, that is our important or our key concept is called colonialism. So the key, you can say takeaways of that, it is something, a process. Colonialism is not an action, it's a process of a country taking full or sometimes taking partial political control of a dependent countries and territories or peoples. It occurs when people from one country settle in another country for why? For the purpose of exploiting its people, its natural resources. So you see, what is the how this kind of mechanism of human mind, or this process, mental process, functions negatively, and the consequence is very negative. So it is a power, you can say, negative power, typically attempt to impose their own language and cultures on the indigenous peoples of the countries they colonized. And it is similar to imperialism. It is also a process. Imperialism is also a process. There we use force. There we influence to control another country or another people. It is very, very, you know, uh, very, very important to know how it affects us negatively. So let us come forward. What what colonialism is actually about? It is actually about an act of political and economic domination. And it involves the control of a country, control of peoples of the country, and try to shelters from a foreign power. And in most cases, what happens? The colonializing countries is to profit by exploiting the human and economic resources of the countries by colonized. And in this process, what happened? The colonizers sometimes possibly attempt to impose their religion, impose their language, impose their culture, impose the political practices on the indigenous population or people. So there are two ways of understanding this notion. Otherwise, it is very difficult to understand. It's a very something going in a very one way of understanding. So let us understand little broader way. So that we have to segregate the notion into two different segregations. The first one is something you can say colonialization. Colonization is typically viewed negatively and positively. The negatively, when we understand negatively, the negative meaning of the colonialization is because of disastrous history, similarity to imperialism. You already understood the imperialism, that people force to do something, people impose to do something, whether you are interested or not. But as you know, our topic is phenomenology of colonialism. As you know, it is depends on human value. It evaluates the value of human individual to the well-being of collective well-being of the nations. So individual to universal. So, but the problem here is that how it affects negatively. It affects negatively. But colonialism is not only a negative concept, you cannot say. It is also affect positively. So firstly check about the negative aspect. Why it is negative? Because it is disastrous history. Historically, if we look at how it was happening, people are migrating from this place to that place because of pure danger. And then now you see, it is also similar to imperialism. Why danger and why pure? Because there are some kind of negative force has to do this, whether you are interested or not. Now, some countries have benefited. And so there is also benefit in negative impact of the colonialism. What is the benefit? Benefit from having been colonized. For example, leaders of the modern Singapore, you can say, the British colony from 1826 to 1965, credits the values aspect of colonial heritage with the independence by city-states, impressive economic development. In many cases, being colonized gave underdeveloped, or you can say emerging countries, immediate access to the burgeoning European trade market. As the major European nations, need for natural resources grew over greater during the industrial revolutions. And their colonized countries were able to sell them, those materials, for sustainable profit. Now, come for this, and besides, you can say, illustrative traits, contrast, and English into, you can say, institutions such as common law, private property rights, and formal banking, lending practices, provided the colonized a positive basis of economic growth that would propel them to future independence. Of course, in many cases, however, the negative effects of colonization, colonialism far outweighed the positive. The governments of the occupying countries often imposed harsh new laws and taxes on the indigenous people. You can say conviction and destruction of native lands and culture were common due to the combined aspect of colonialism and imperialism. Scores of indigenous people were enslaved, murdered, died of diseases and starvations. Countless others were driven from their homes and scattered across the globe. Let us think about what our thinker, what about we are going to discuss. Frantz Fanon. He was born in West Indies on the island of Martinique in 1925. From there, he went to France to study medicine, specializing in psychiatry. His studies completed, and he accepted a post on the staff of a hospital outside Algiers. Here, he was able to observe what he had already personally experienced as a black brought up in a French colony. The psychological effects of colonization, colonization,
Colonialization.
colonialization,
Yes.
colonization.
Colonialization.
Yes, and
Yeah.
he joined the rebels and committed himself to the Algerian struggle for liberation. And his dedication, his extraordinary insight into the psychology of oppression marked him as one of the most articulate champion of the Algerian revolution and of those oppressed by colonialism and neo-colonialism the world offered. Fanon did not live to see an independent Algeria in 1961. He was discovered that he was suffering from leukemia, and he died. And died in December. On that year, at the age of 36, his work continues to ignite the imagination of leaders. His key works are as you know, he has written several books, like very important books. The Race to the Earth, The Dying Colonialism, Black Skin and White Mask, and Towards the African Revolutions. Let us proceed about his work. I want to outline all his key important works, like these 4 books. Firstly, you can see about black skin and white masks. This is the first book. And in this book, he has analyzed the psychology of colonialism, and he has examined that how the colonizer internalized colonialism and its attendant ideologies, and how colonialized people is in turn internalize the idea of their own inferiority, and ultimately come to the emulate their oppressors. Here, racism functions as a controlling mechanism, and that mechanism maintains colonial relation as natural occurrences. And he provides a power and lasting indictment of racism and imperialism. And then the next is a dying colonialism, is a historical document. It is a, you can say, first-hand account of the Algerian Revolution, describing it has discussed about how the Algerian people became a revolutionary force and ultimately were successful in repelling the French colonial government. So it is, however, it is also a philosophical discussion of the meaning of the conflict and what might come after it. Towards the African Revolution, that is, African Revolution is a collection of articles towards the African. So this is another important text, and it is uh, it is the latest which spans the period between black skin, white mask, and rest of the earth. It was established just before Fanon's death. It was very much with the Algerian independence struggle in mind. It is prefaced by Jean-Paul Sartre, and this book offers a socio-psychological analysis of colonialism, and continuing his argument that there is a deep connection between. Yes. So in the last text, in the rest of the earth, Fanon argues for violent revolution against colonial control, ending in socialism. And these struggles must be combined, and he argued with building national, building national culture.
Rebuilding
Yes,
national culture.
yes. In that sense, Fanon was a supporter of socialist nationalism. And Fanon not only writes about violence in the international context, colonialism, national consciousness, freedom fighting, but he also includes a uh, psychoanalytic investigation of mental disorder associated with colonial war. As you know that in this context, I want to say he was also the follower of some Jones and some other further many other psychologists. Basically, they have discussed about human psychology, and they have discussed or critically analyze human psychology. Therefore, they have divided into three important parts of human human psychology. One is ID and ego, and then superego. Basically, the people try to stay in ID, ID, ID aspect or ID sector, but has to move towards other. Otherwise, the person is not a social person. So therefore, the first is ID. ID case, either you are a old person or you are a child, you are knowing something or not knowing something, there is no critical observations, but then you have to move towards the other levels of the mind. You can say, yeah, you can say three levels of the human psychology. The second level is ego. There we try to just, very minimal aspect of socialization, minimally. We not to tell you will be socialized. No, just minimal aspect. Very narrowly, or not narrowly, but minimally. You interact with some others, your neighbors, your friends, class friends, and others. But at the end of the stage, that is the big higher level is called the superego, where there you will be the icon, you will be the identity, you will be the symbol, something you can say. How the present, uh, uh, how the thinker, you can say, we are discussing about his thought, Frantz Fanon, is like that. But there is no possibility, there is no guarantee that uh, you will be rigid in any levels. No, there is flexibility. You can turn back. You can turn back. There is possibility of turn back. You can take a turn to back step, backwards. Like suppose superego to again ego again also ID. Because of the the intervention and understanding of the peripheral, you can say the proximal regions or causes of the surroundings of your surroundings. But if you are focusing on the distal causes, then there is less chances to take a back step. You will move forward, and there is possibility of teaching others or providing some lights towards the benevolence of the society, or you can say try to there is possibility uh, to make a society which is just by you. So that this is very important to know, but I don't want to discuss details about that aspect. But also a it is also important, it is also included here, therefore I just. So now, uh, the Frantz Fanon also discuss about the connection between the inner world and subjugated individuals and working of international politics, everything. So now come for the next observation, that is, I want to provide some introductory remarks of our thinker, Fanon, Frantz Fanon's phenomenology of colonialism. This is our important focus. This is our main focus. So you can say that how he has introduced or theorized the process. You can say colonialism, it is considered as a mental process, psychological process. Though it's happening, acting as a substantially, it is very visible to all of us, but the behind that, the power is there, it's psychological power, mental power. So you can say it's a revolution. Revolution is mankind's way of life today. Of course, without revolution, there is no life. Sometimes even the progress of the life. If the progress is a negatively or positively, that is different aspect. But the point here is very important. Revolution is mankind's way of life today. And this is the age of revolution. The age of indifference is gone forever. But the latter age paved the way for today. Of course, it's back-to-back connection. But you said in the psychological levels, there is possibility of going back and move forward, going back and move forward. This is very federal in nature, very elastic in nature. So, for the great masses of mankind, while still suffering the greatest oppression and the greatest affronts of their dignity of a human being, never cease to resist, to fight, and to live in combat. The combatant dignity of humanity was maintained in an unbreakable through not only visible lines in the depth of the life of the masses, and also in the uninterrupted fight, slandered, attacked, but alive in the very center of history of little revolutionary vanguards bound to this profound human reality. Yes, and to its socialist future, and also not to the apparent omnipotence of great system. Today, the great system have died, are living in a state of crisis. Yes or no? Yes, most of the cases. And it is no longer the age of little vanguards. The whole of humanity has erupted violently, tumultuously onto the stage of history, taking into one destiny in its hand. Capitalism is under the siege, surrounded by a global tide of revolution. And this revolution still without a center, without a precise form, has its own law, its own life, a depth of unity. Unity accorded it by the same masses. Who created it? Who live it? Who inspired each other from across boundaries? Give each other spirit, give each other encouragement, learn from their collective experience. It is necessary. Let us think further. It is about, you know, yes. Yes, and this revolution is changing humanity. In the revolutionary struggle, the immense oppressed masses of the colonies and semi-colonies feel that they are they are a part of life, part of life for the first time, and life acquires a sense, a transcendent. As you know that some philosophical term I'm using here, no need to worry. It is very simple. That is, there is, you can say it is a transcendent. How it is transcendence? How they feel this? Because that, neither they detached from the materiality nor they detached from the mentality. So how they harmonize? They are living in a harmonious manner. Try to make balance. Either they are fail or pass, succeed or failure. That is different, but they try to do, to try to maintain the state, or try to live in that level. That is needed. Otherwise, there is no possibility of survival. Cannot survive. So, an object to an and exploitation, to govern themselves by and for themselves, and to construct a way of life. There is possibility. And otherwise it is very difficult to construct the way of life. If you are uh, rigid with or restrict to any material things, there is no possibility of construct a life. That is so temporal. There is possibility of so many tension, and there is possibility of destruction. That is the way of destruction, not construction. That is the way of destruction. The destruction of life, not construction of life. Construction of life has to be transcendent. You should transcendent. You can transparency. That means so you can everything can mirror to you. Your mind can mirror you. The world can mirror you. If you are rigid with your mentality, you are just mirroring your life through your mind, then also there is possibility of destruction, death. Or if you are mirroring your life through the metal or matters, the world, there is also possibility of death. So then what is the way? The way is nothing but to transparency, transcendent. Try to make a balance, harmony between both. So here, the armed struggle break up the old ruins life of the countryside and village, excites, exalts, and opens wide the door of the future. Yes, then there is possibility of future, generation wise, you can think. So here, Fanon talked about that liberation doesn't come as a gift from anybody. It is not a gift. It is seized by the masses with their own hand. And by seizing it, they themselves are transformed. Confidence in their own strength, they turn their energy and their experience to the task of building, governing, deciding their own life for themselves. So Fanon assumes something differently about this colonialism. And he said, look at the machinery aspect of this. So it is a naked violence. Only gives in when confronted with greater violence. And then had become, uncontroversial across Asia and Africa whenever armed, you can say, mutinies erupted against the Western colonialists. Fanon perceived colonialism as a form of domination, whose necessary goal for success was the reordering of the world of indigenous peoples. And also Fanon saw violence as the defining characteristics of colonialism. Therefore, it is unequal exchange, eternal integration, internal
And external integration. External
disarticulation.
integration.
Hello, yes.
Rajiv, that is external integration and
Yes,
internal
that is external
disarticulation.
integration, and it is internal disarticulation. Yes, sorry. And it is also a drain of wealth, and also a foreign political dominations may be understood as the four main features of colonialism. Let us discuss. Yes, this is. So here I have used several approaches of colonialisms. Look at this, that firstly, if you think about this approach, first you find the periods that 1415 to 1970, beginning when several European powers, Spain, Portugal, Britain, and France, established colonies in Asia, Africa, and the Americas. And then it took place something differently, that is decolonizations at the First and Second World War. And it established independence from colonial power. And then it again started about unequal economic power, that is called neo-colonialisms, where it is cruelty exists between former colonies and the former colonizing nation. And then also Marxian colonialisms, that is also the part of global capitalist systems, and it led to exploitation, social change, many things happen at that moment. And then dependency theory, which is very important, that because here the countries try to develop certain way, because wealthy countries have exploited poor countries in the past through colonialisms, and today through foreign debt and trades it's happening. The dependency theory is providing. This is the process through which we can think about the positive aspect of that. And another important theory, that is world system. It splits the world economic system into core, peripheral, and semi-peripheral countries. Like means you can say, that means it is completely the dependency of that, means it creates a networking, that there is no force imperialisms in certain way, and that there is no exploitation, something it's minimal, it minimizes, the exploitation minimizes in certain way. Let us think for the brief exposition of all the approaches here. I want to discuss that because it is very important to know that, otherwise we'll face some, you'll face the problem of semantic inappropriateness. So, modern colonialism started with the age of discovery, during which Portugal and Spain discovered new land across the ocean, including America and Atlantic, South Pacific islands. and built trading posts. And according to some scholars, that building those colonies across oceans differentiates colonialism from other type of expense, you can say expansionism, expansionism, expansionism. And these new lands were first divided into the Portuguese Empire and Spanish Empire. Though the British, French, and Dutch soon acquired vast territory as well. The 17th century saw the creation of the French colonial empire, the Dutch Empire, and English colonial empire, which later became the British Empire. It also shows the establishment of some uh, Swedish overseas colonies and the Danish colonies empire. The spread of colonial empire diminished in the late 18th to 19th century, largely due to the American Revolutionary War and Latin American War for independence. However, many new colonies were established after this period, including the German colonial empire and Belgian colonial empire. And in the later 19th century, many European powers were involved in the so-called, you can say, scramble for Africa, in which many African colonies were established again. Now, the important thing is the decolonization. Decolonization, that is, after the First World War, it's happened, and the victories allies divided up the German colonial empire and much of the Ottoman Empire according to League of National mandates. And these territories were divided into three classes based on how quickly they would be ready for independence. And it decolonization outside the American legate until after World War II. In ideal cases, decolonized colonies were granted sovereignty or the light of the self-govern, becoming independent countries. Then neocolonialization occurred. It took place after Second World War. It doesn't refer to any type of distinct colonization, but direct colonization, you can say, but colonialism by other means. More specifically about, it refers to the theory that former or existing economic relations and the Great Agreement on tariff and trades, GATS, and the Central American Free Trade Agreement are used to maintain control of former colonies after formal independence was achieved. In broader usage, you can say colonialism may simple uh, simple refer to the involvement of powerful countries in the affairs of less powerful countries. This is especially relevant in modern Latin America. In this sense, colonialism implies a form of economic imperialism. And then colonialism and neocolonialism in the world system houses exist. One approach sociologists takes to colonialism and neocolonialism is a Marxist perspectives. Marx views colonialism as part of the global capitalist system, which has led to exploitation, social change, and uneven development. And he argued that it was destructive and it produced dependency. So, according to some Marxist historian, in all of the colonial countries ruled by Western European countries, indigenous people were robbed to uh, health and opportunities. Let us think for the from a Marxist perspective, colonies are considered by Bismarck's modes of production. The search for raw materials and new investment opportunities is the result of inter-capitalist uh, rivalry for capital accumulation. Dependency theory builds upon Marxist thought, blaming colonialism and neo-colonialism for poverty within the world system. And this theory argues that countries have developed at a uneven rate because world wealthy countries have exploited poor countries in the past, and today today through foreign trade and foreign uh, debt and trade. Then world system theory provides some solutions for that. It suggests that the consequence of colonialism and continuing practice of neo-colonialism produces unequal economic relation within the world system. So the sociologist Immanuel Wellstein elaborate on these forms of economic inequality. In this theory, the world economic system is divided into a hierarchy of three types of countries: core, semi, and peripheral. Yes. And the core countries like USA, Japan, Germany are dominant capitalist countries characterized by high level of industrialization and urbanization. Peripheral countries like Africa, most of the African countries and low income countries in South America are dependent on one core countries for capital and have very little industrialization and urbanization. And peripheral countries are usually again uh, and have low literacy rates and lack internet connection in many areas like that. And semi-peripheral countries like South Korea, Taiwan, Mexico, Brazil, India, even Nigeria, South Africa are less dependent than core relation, but are more developed than peripheral relations. This is what. Now I had said that domination is the key factor of colonialisms. I'll provide the diagram here. You look at the diagrams. Is how our thinker Frantz Fanon has argues that domination is a key factor of colonialism. It's a form of colonialism, he says. Now, it's a people divided into that grouping systems, group and non-groups, then and the groups into intra-groups and inter-groups, and the intergroups again divided into two sector: colonialism and imperialisms. And then colonialisms again divided into different segments like exter- extermination, assimilation, neither, and each one domestic and international, like this in the imperialism in the similar basis. Now, Comfort, his what is his uh, main argument on phenomenology of colonialism? Said he argues that the native develops a sense of self as defined by the colonial master through representation and through discourse, while the colonizer develops a sense of superiority. So the key idea of his approach of colonialism here is othering. Othering involves two concepts. One is exotic others and one is dominic other. The exotic other represents a fascination with the inherent dignity and inherent beauty of the primitive and underdeveloped, you can say, undeveloped other while others. While the demonic other is represented as inferior and negative and savage and evil. And then next approach is something, next key idea of his approach that uh, diaspora. It is about the people who have been displaced, who have been dispersed from their homelands, and who possesses and who share a collective memory and collective myth and nostalgia, you can say reminiscence of home and an inherited ideology of home. And it becomes a personal identity as well as a collective identity of members of particular community. And they are not rooted in one location. They live in the memories of their imagined homeland, like that. In the new geographical location, they also negotiated. And their culture and that of the host nations. Now, next idea is that hybridity. It is something uh, migrates, that it is something about the migrants attempt to combine the culture of origin with that of the host countries without abandoning either. Is called hybridity, or something you can say syncretism. Syncretism. The central theme is in post-colonial diasporic literature is the negotiation of two identities. One is the split consciousness of being both, yet neither completely, and the multiple identities or solidarities, or in extreme cases, and research of native cultural identity as manifest in cultural foundationalisms. This is. And then the next one is the double consciousness. It is very important. That is something about the internal conflict. Internal conflict we experience by subordinated or colonized group in an tyrannical society. Here, this concept, the double consciousness, is propounded by W.E.B. Du Bois. He has argued that there are two soul and two thought, but they have only single body, one body but two thoughts and two souls. In this, similarly, our thinker Frantz Fanon claims that our self is divided by two visions like the black wedge. Black always see himself through the eye of the white. This is like that. But some other discusses that there are many souls and many thoughts, but only one body. One body having many souls and many thoughts for others. But it is basically what is happening here. This thought is what is signified. It's pointing to the migrant experience is multiple subject positions. It is that. And in this context, our thinker, Frantz Fanon, identifies the double consciousness something differently. He said that African American face and its source and the culture, social confusion of African American were caused by European culture. So he gave example of things that he has encountered that demonstrate and the double consciousness. And then it is something revolutionary psychiatrics, another idea which is very important to understand what phenomenology of consciousness as colonialism is. Here the idea stretches the evolution of Fanon's clinical theory and practice to underscore the fact that a genuine endeavor to restore the health of the oppressed assumes a commitment to restore their liberty. It is about the psychiatry of psychological liberation. Here, Fanon was the generation that effectively called colonialism into question and affect its demise in Africa. Yet to have been one of the few black psychiatrists at the time and at a socio-politically committed one, that was no doubt a major challenge itself. There were countless misconceptions to be corrected, as undistinguished racism to be combated, and alternative to the thought out. Fanon traversed this route pretty much alone as a black psychiatrist, even though he worked in collaboration with a European who share his outlook, it not in commitments. For example, the famous experiment in therapy, Fanon presented to a congress of psychiatrists and neurologists their confession in North Africa. North Africa. The presentation, though brief, but it's crucial for at least three reasons. First one is to glimpse from it Fanon's involving interest in ethnopsychiatry. Second, we again find his critique of establishment psychiatry, particularly the Algiers school. And third one, it intimates a critique of domination and of the prevailing social order. In this context, Fanon says that resting solidity on cultural basis and the system is of great human value, which doesn't confine itself only to the efficacy of the North Africa therapy. This natural method of assistance is imprinted with a profoundly holistic thought, which keeps intact the image of the normal man, in spite of the existence of affliction. Attitude is guided by a care of and respect to the person. It is not madness that creates the respect, the patience, the indulgence. It is rather the man affected by madness, attacked by spirit. It is man as such. And it attempts to place madness in its social, historical, and cultural perspective, and to restore integrity to the indigenous conception was to Fanon analogous to the larger project of instituting political and social justice. The colonialism of Europe did not confine itself to economics or politics. It is also permitted psychiatric concepts and practice. So, Fanon's critical inquiry into psychiatric theory and practice was at first confined to an institutional context and professional cycles. In this context, he argues that it must always be remembered that with the institutional therapy, we create frozen institutions, strict and rigid rules, schemes which rapidly become stereotypical. In the new society, there is no invention, no creative dynamism, no newness. There seems to be no variable dislocation, no crisis. The institution remains that ecoveric foundation of which mass speaks. However, the inert character of the pseudo-society, its strict or special limitation, the restricted number of the movement, and why hide it? The actual experience of confinement, imprisonment, considerably limit the curative and rehabilitative value of its sociotherapy. That is why we believe today that the true milieu for sociotherapy is a concrete society. As you know that, again, one important term here, this concrete society, that means that it's a practical society, not abstract society. So the phenomenology of colonialism should say avoid that sense. It seems that it's abstract in nature, but actually it's about the concrete things we experience, because within that world, through our experience. So that is what it is about, the concrete society itself. So following suggestions offer stimulate thoughts like one is underlying much of prevailing psychological theory and practices are the ethic of individualism and the ideals of individual autonomy and the particular conception of basic human needs and exclusive emphasis on individual change, which together reflect a fundamental cultural as well as a class basis. And secondly, one essential precondition for a psychology of liberation is to reformulate the psychological outlook, that is about the basic human needs and foci of change in way that take into account the priorities and frustrations of the oppressed. Let us think about the another mechanism is needed, is important, that is master slave paradigm. Particularly, uh, uh, Fanon, in his book The Rest of the Earth, he argues that the violence in the master slave dialectic takes on a paramount and and catastrophic significance. The colonialism also reveals itself simply as another stage of slavery. That is his claim. And he said that the colonializer-colonialized relationship is thus a derivative of the master-slave relationship. Try to understand, my dear student. It's very important to know that how it is saying that, how he is conceptualizing, how he's conceptualizing or synthesizing that. That colonializer-colonialized relationship is thus a derivative of the master-slave relationship. It reveals the essential of the other. It concerns with the general master-slave relations in relations. Okay. And he analyzes the way of analysis of colonialized relationship in his later work with the shift of each substance. Indeed, praxis and experience in colonial Algeria illuminated the coordinates of the oppressor oppressed dialectic. Again, Fanon emphasized that the colonial world is divided into two. It is the Venetian world, two camps inhabited by two different species in, you can say, perceptual conflict. It is a perceptual conflict. And the two protagonists lives in reciprocally exclusive zones. Their neighborhood, eh? Yes, and their you can say nutrition, their health, their manner of life and death, all these are in stark contrast. It is the colonizer and colonized are locked in a deadly combat, affect all aspects of life. So the colonizer considers himself the embodiment of supreme good, but portrays the colonized is the incarnation of evil. This is the phenomenological aspect of that. And it is something, see, that colonized in turn in assumed with its self-delusion of oppressors. And it entertain his moral superiority and prepare for the final assault of on his oppressor. Let us think about the violence, how violence is an important pillar of that, important, you can say, weapon for kind of, it's how it's act negatively. So simply understanding violence in general context is not, it is very specific. So we have to know some taxonomy of violence and then correlate with the topic. So here the situation of domination is essentially a cauldron of violence. It is brought into existence and it maintained by dint of violence. And this violence gradually permits the social order to affect everyday life living. And the violence takes on different guises. and becomes less blatant, more integral to institutional as well as to interpersonal reality. Interpersonal reality. My dear students, also sometimes see, you should not be confused. The interpersonal and intrapersonal, very different. You yourself thinking something about, and you are thinking about others. A thinks about A is interpersonal, intrapersonal method, and A thinks about B is interpersonal method. So here, what is happening? Interpersonal reality. It is about violence creates some, destroys some interpersonal realities. It creates some confusion, problem for this, and it even invades the deeper recesses of the individual psyche, permitting fantasies and dreams. So the study domination is here in the final analysis to delve into the problem of violence in both in subtle and both in great manifestation. Now the subtle cases here is something, it is not substantial. That means something abstract in nature, very difficult to. So therefore, we need the help of the thinker here, our thinker, Fanon. What Fanon is saying, that violence distort the militant humanism. It refers to many actions, it many possesses and conditions, many conditions. So it invariably emphasizes some aspect more than others and includes some to the inclusion of others. Sorry, exclusion of the others, not inclusion, it's exclusion of the others. Therefore, it is talking about interpersonal realities. And the concept of violence here, very both literal or figurative meanings is here. As to understand it, I want to discuss something about that. So, firstly, it may refer to action causing physical injury, and it may figuratively emphasizes intensely of feelings and the end of words. Violence may be confined only to those harmful actions lacking social sanction. It may refer to a phenomenon between individual or group. So these are several types of violence. Sorry, there are several types of violence has to be understood here. Very briefly, I will say, don't worry. First one is instrumental violence. So it refers to the inflicting of pain and injury, and used to physical constant in order to induce another person to carry out some action against his wishes. This is called instrumental. And then next one is expressive. It is a violence with use of pain, injury as an end in itself. That is expressive. And then legitimative. It refers to the socially sanctioned use or threat of harm, as in police action and war. These are. And then illegitimate. Illegitimate, it is something goes against law, goes against the norm of society, everything. Criminal, homicide, everything, etc. Now, human violence, it occurs at personal, institutional, structural levels. It is the easiest to discern and control. It affects as easiest to assess. It is a phenomenon of that. It involves direct action, and it means, and it restricted to place and time. One can identify a specific perpetrators whose aims can be verified and the victim whose injuries can be assessed. It exists a perpetrator's victims relation preceding and subsequent to the violent incident. And here, indeed, it permitted the relationship as a whole. Nonetheless, personal violence permits the ordinary procedures of imputing intent and rendering judgment and exacting retribution. And we will say that it is also, how that means I don't want to discuss more about it. Uh, and sometimes, yes, I just introduced that previously about that interpersonal and intrapersonal, that already told, no need to say more. I think, uh, uh, oh, hello.
Yes, Rajiv.
uh, I I cannot conclude today. Okay, I think it will take another class. So just now I will provide some outputs from this talk. Some important part also I have to discuss. If you will permit me in the next or some other days, I can take out. Hello, bhai.
Okay,
Is
you
it possible?
okay? I mean, what is
Because
your
no,
output?
otherwise it's so lengthy. So lengthy. Many important part that like your some important part also I left. I skipped that one, knowingly because I cannot conclude. It will take so too much time. So that I can say from this discussion we found that how our thinker Frantz Fanon tried to build something from individualism to collective well-being. His target is to that what phenomenology of colonialism teaches us. This is what we have to do from individualism to how to build a you can say strong relationship between this, like from individualism to collective well-being. We can think about it, and also we can think about instinct to human needs, and also adjustment to empowerment. These are the key output, okay, so the key points which refers to or which can be considered as the output of this talk or topic or today's discussion. So thank you so much, my dear students and bhai.
Okay, thank
I
you,
would like to
Rajiv.
stop here and yes,
I mean,
if any query and questions, I'm ready. I want to deal with that. That is also the important part. Any students?
okay, I'll go back to the student letter. I mean, let me speak few things on your talk.
Yes, bhai.
Uh, uh, Getting, I mean, a material or direct materials on the phenomenology of colonialism by Fanon.
Uh,
You may not get the direct material, so you have to read books. Five or
uh,
six books Fanon has, written.
uh,
So if you go through all this book, then I think you can get a sense what Dr. Behera, uh, he deliberated with us. Uh, but certainly, I think none of us have gone through those books. But from your talk, I think we get some inputs. We need to review your talk, and out of your talk, we can elicit certain points. The most attractive slide is your output, that the phenomenology of colonialism. It teaches us that you should move towards the collective well-being. You should move towards the human needs, from human instincts to human needs, the genuine
yes,
needs. And it is a journey from adjustment to empowerment. And I think this is the best slide. I mean, from political science, point of view or political science perspective, this is the best slide. So I think to understand whatever you said, we need to review your, you
yes,
know, uh, writings, right?
yes,
And I'm thankful to you that you have prepared all these slides, you have gone through the literatures, and you have written, long paragraphs.
yes,
But
yes. Short
somewhere,
one.
in what I do actually, I
Uh,
don't use slide. I
okay.
always think about what is the central argument. Now, this
Uh,
is typically a political science approach.
uh,
We try to get the center point, and then we try to analyze that point. Then there are central point. There is a central point. There are certain points at the periphery. Then we do a discussion around the center point, taking the points in the periphery. But in your case, I think since you are a man from philosophy, I mean your orientation is something different, and you always try to speak the ultimate truth, right? Generally, we design a talk, we try to make it interesting, but I think I know the philosophy, uh, you know teachers and students, they don't make things interesting. They always try to tell the truth, and thereby they are trapped, right? So it is an unending attempt, uh, from their side. But somehow I think you have given many inputs to our uh, you know topic, that phenomenology of colonialism.
I'm,
And
Bhai, I'm requesting you to give me again another opportunity to discuss about another part.
okay, there is another part.
Yes, yes.
So
Any other
we
day,
we will
because
do that.
actually it is not the complete things about which is not signifying the wholesome thesis of the topic. Therefore,
Yes.
though the minor part, that means you can say the small part has left, but that is important. That has to include, and then I can provide
Okay,
a
I
continue
think
the.
before that, Rajiv, I think whatever you have said, student must understand it. And maybe
Okay.
you have understood whatever you are saying. And I'm sure
Yes.
that student will take some time to understand it. Either they will review your talk, or they will go back to the original text. Even as
Yes.
a teacher, let me confess that I have understood, and somewhere I'm also lost. It's primarily because I have not gone through all these books, so I need to
Yes, yes. That is
revisit
that.
revisit your talk. Then maybe we'll get a sense. I mean, you have said many things, and I feel Fanon is a kind of uh, he's a philosopher of colonialism. He has understood colonialism better than many others. And
Yes.
okay, so I think students, if you have understood, you can ask question. Otherwise, I will not force you to ask question. So, any questions from the student side? Any questions? No, I can understand why they are not asking question. See, let me say it that our second semester has not been okay. Durati, you want to ask question? Yes, Durati, you can directly ask.
It is
Durati,
not audible.
We cannot hear you.
I think it is mute.
Durati, are you there? Durati, we cannot hear you.
Bhai, I can also, uh, you know,
Okay, I
give
think
freedom to
LK
students.
Mahapatra,
Anytime they
Laks,
can.
Lakshmikant Mahapatra, you want to ask?
Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay, Durati, you ask.
Okay, sir. I wanted to understand to what extent did Fanon experience the colonialism? Secondly,
Yes.
how did Fanon correlate Marxism ideas? And thirdly, uh, why is it that the colonized countries see themselves in the eyes of the colonizers? And how did the double consciousness helped? How did double consciousness help to decay colonialism?
Yes, yes. So thank you for your interesting question and it also important. Uh, as you know that we the beings are conscious being, but how it was happening that times and why they are not emphasizing on and how through the mechanism of the double consciousness it can be the problem of the colonialism can be resolved. Uh, that is interesting to uh, understand through uh, the lens of Fanon. But as you know that uh, uh, people with the human uh, think about our on on sake or on we think for the sake of our own benefit and own way of understanding. But the thought here, what Fanon has introduced, that phenomenology of colonialisms, that is something teaches to the human being, has to experience about your surroundings and about yourself. The double lens, what you can say, the double consciousness is a kind of the two, the you can say the two eyes of the same human heart or human consciousness. That means you can think, you can move further, you can move forward, and there is possibility to come back to refine or you can say re evaluate your own activity or actions. Then only there is possibility of uh, justifying the dignity of a human being and to justify the existence of a being in the real world. And you can think for the think for the think for a society which is just and uh, you can evaluate the reality of the world or the reality of your existence, which is necessary, which is necessary. Though you can face the problem, though you can say psychological problem to boycott or to avoid you can say the impression of the object or matter. But the phenomenologist I had said in the past, I think the introduction part, phenomenologist like Edmund Husserl has provided multiple multiple techniques to uh, understand, to experience our surroundings like bracketing, analyzing, and epoche. All sort of factor has to be maintained, has to be used. Bracketing in the sense that sometimes we are so much excited to do something or very much impressed on something else or something is imposing to us. But we have a power of sense or consciousness can be put that in a bracket. That means for certain period of time, and we can judge properly and do and perform accordingly. Then there is possibility. I had also given a model of mind with relate to intentionality. That is something very important to understand what you are your point, what you had intended that the person, a human, have a capacity to believe something, but that is not the case. The person is believing truly. Therefore, therefore there is need of further query. How do you know that I have believed truly or false? So you have to use your choice. You have to involve with your choice and attitude, and then try to perform that. Then when you perform that, if your intentionality is included with your performance, then automatically it will move, it will act positively. If it is not happening, you are biased by you are forced by imposed by your or you are not able to control your ego. So in order to understand this one, the empowerment of ego, I had also provided a mechanism of the psychology, the division of or levels of psychology what by John, Freud, Sigmund Freud, and our even Fanon, also the family, you can see the follower of Freud, Sigmund Freud. that the levels of consciousness is also important. Whether you are moving towards or not, you are strict. You are strict in certain point. That is also important. If you are moving, then you are according to psychological theory or the levels, you are moving from ID to ego, and ego to again further super ego. But if you are strict in the ID state, then you are doing nothing. There is no question of loss and profit, no harm and happy. So it is also according to psychological theory, it is also very genuine true that the psychology of human being develop gradually. So that I think it was happening later, earlier. Then after these people, those who try to think properly and use their intellect or psychology properly and understood the mechanism of all sort of factors, then automatically it helps them to control the control the negative effect of that, how it was happening, the colonialism, some things. So phenomenology of colonialism of Frantz Fanon helps us a lot. It helps us not. We cannot say that whether we can use substantially or we can use for our action or not, but we can understand. We can understand what is right or wrong, what is good, bad. That is things. Hopefully, you understood
Okay,
something.
thank you, Rajeeb. Lakshmikant, you want to ask?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, you ask.
Good evening, sir.
Yes, good evening.
Just, sir, I want to know about, uh, sir, a book written by Fanon, Black
Which,
Skin, White Marks.
yes, yes.
So, sir, I would like to know about the metaphorical meaning of black skin and white marks.
Yes, yes. Actually, that is his, the metaphorical sense of that is nothing but the division of the self. How the same self reflects different, the double image of the double image of the, you can say any object. That is nothing but the psychological conflict. You can say, yes, psychological problem, or you can say that is nothing but the perceptual conflict. Okay, the perceptual conflict and the lack of understanding about the reality, about and lack of the understanding the consciousness. Sorry, what is that? Experience, the skill of experiencing something is lacking certain way. Therefore, it is mirroring multiple ways. The same thing mirrors multiple manner. But that is not a problem. The problem is if that affect or act or impact something differently, which is harmful for us, not producing, not creating a way of life, not providing not constructing a life, rather it is destructing a life, then that is the problem. So that the metaphorical sense is nothing but the division of the self, but the significance, philosophical significance of the division of the self, how the self, divided self affect or act or impact on our life, whether that construct the life or destruct the life, that is important. Actually, it was happening. Why Fanon says written like that? Because it was happening. They are destructing. People are not able to understand able to control or able to, yes, understand properly about their experience, how they are experiencing their surroundings. That was one partial or one way of looking at something. What I said, that you have to make a harmony, maintain a harmony between your impression and ideas, or you can say impression, your mentality and materiality. If you are emphasizing on matter, then it never affect you positively. It won't affect you positively in a broader sense. And if you, similarly, if you emphasize your mental part, purely mental part, not you're neglecting the another part, material part. It will also affect you negatively in a broader sense, not conclusively, but partially. So that the metaphorical sense is that something, the division of selves. But there is a synthesis, though it's divided. But what our Fanon has provided in his doctrine, Phenomenology of Colonialism, that is the synthetic model of that, the self, is to be understood. But he has written because the book and given the name of the book like that because of he has faced many problems. He has been facing, practicing. He is the eyewitness of that problem. So therefore,
Okay, thank you,
yeah.
Rajiv. And another, I think someone has raised his hand.
Yes,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm okay, sir.
Oh, Mukesh.
yes, yes,
Okay.
Yes, sir.
yes,
Good evening, sir.
yes. Good
Uh,
evening.
Sir, in your presentation, sir, you uh, tell us about that the
Yeah.
word, the term colonist, colonizer, and colonized. So, sir, I mean, the colonist means people who do atrocity, those who exploit the native people. They are called
Yeah.
colonist or the colonizer. So, sir, is
Yeah,
there any
colonies.
difference between the yes, sir? Is there any difference between colonist or colonizer? I mean, colonized people mean those who are actually they are suffered. They are the native people, and the
Yes, yes,
colonized,
yes.
yes, sir. So what is the I mean, the connections between all three terms, sir? I want to know, sir.
Well, the semantic variation among these terms are very much similar, but uh, the ontological difference is that uh, the existence of the people, whether suffer, uh, they are suffering, or they are living in the realm of that uh, mm, situations or the place, or somewhere they are facing the problem in the realm of rationality. That means though they are not under the custody of that press or imperialism or something force or something, but still they are intending about that. So therefore, uh, both are similar in sense, but it is something so you can understand about the concrete and abstract reality of the society. That concrete, you can think about the concrete society and abstract society. In that two ways, in this manner, you have to understand the hierarchy and the differentiation. But it signify uh, similarly. Just the ontological variation is that.
Mukesh, actually, what you are trying to ask, colonizer
Uh,
and colonized.
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What is the difference between colonized and colonizer?
Yeah, and also colonist. I think
Colon
colonizer and colonist both are actually same meanings. What I understand. And colonize mean those who are
Colonized
actually
means those
yeah.
indigenous people. I mean,
Yes, sir.
India was colonized
Colonized.
by Britisher. So Britisher are
Yes,
the
sir.
colonizer, and
Yeah.
Indians are the colonized. Is it truth,
And
Rajiv?
Yes, it is truth, but the no, the phenomenological notion of that is something very much similar. That means those who colonized, that means that is the concrete level they are, but not, but in the abstract level, those who colonize, they are also okay.
Okay.
There is no the question of no, there is no some you can say I lost the I skipped the point sorry skip the slide one slide that is radical sociogency that has to discuss. That's why in the next class I will discuss about the
So what
radical
I want,
sociogency.
Rajiv, actually,
Uh,
I request you to give your PPT to us, so that maybe
yes, yes. PPT or notes,
PPT,
notes I will give you. like a
PPT, from
material.
PPT, I think the students will get something to learn.
Okay,
I
okay.
mean, they can directly read, they will try to learn what you have written, and I will provide them your number. If they face any
Yes, yes, that
problem,
also
they
I was
can
telling.
directly contact
If
you.
they can also directly talk to me sometimes, I can also engage with them sometimes for regarding this matter. I also love to do this. To love to do this. Sometimes they will face the problem because our philosophical thought and their political something.
Now, that is what actually I was
But
thinking, that,
there is no so much difference. There is no
you know,
so much difference. We can
see,
bridge.
I think what you have said,
Yeah.
and I'm thinking how to make it reach to our students. I think I need to play the intermediary role. If
Yes, bro.
I
Yes,
will
bro. Yes.
understand, then as a political science student, I know how to communicate to the political science students. So definitely, I will do a homework in the class, taking all these points from your talk. So thank you,
Yes, bro.
Rajiv. Thank you very much for this engagement with us. Now we are at the last part of this event. Now I want Lakshmikant Mahapatra. He is a student, PG student of Barpali Panchayat College, Bargarh,
Acha.
to provide vote of thanks to our speaker, Dr. R.L. Behera. Yes. You
Yes, thank you, sir.
unmute your video, Lakshmikant.
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir.
Yes. Good evening.
Okay, sir. On behalf of the Sambalpur University, I am glad to have standing here the I am glad to standing here the proposed vote on thanks and acknowledge the contribution of all who worked really hard to make this event successful. And sir, special thanks to our chief guest, Assistant Professor Dr. Rajeeb Lochan Behera sir, for accepting our invitation and for being here with us today, sir. And sir, what you deliver and what you have delivered regarding the French Fanon, that was very interesting, and I enjoy very well. And also our friends who are joined this session, they also felt very well. And sir, thank you once again for your stimulating and captivating lecture about Fanon. And we have learned much more. We have learned much more things about Fanon from you, sir. And it was a very interesting lecture, sir. And my colleagues are also thoroughly motivated by your pearls of wisdom. Then lastly, I thanks to Mr. Himanshu sir and for their organizing this meeting, and this lecture would be help much more for PG student also, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much,
Okay, thank you, Lakshmikant. Actually, it is for you only I conducted it, and
sir.
I have some plan. I will invite some different people from the philosophy department to deal with the different contents. It's not that I will not deal. I will deal maybe more than the 50% of your course, contemporary political philosophy. But certainly, I think I must tell that whatever Rajiv said, it is not easy to get. If you will say that it is
Yes, sir.
interesting, then it will be a lie. So I think
Yes,
the
sir.
truth is that to understand Rajiv, we need some kind of reading, or we need to know Fanon. So we know Plato, Aristotle, Hobbes, Locke, Rousseau, but we don't know Fanon, right?
Yes,
We know the name of the books, but what is the argument? What is the philosophical argument? So to know Fanon, I mean to understand Rajiv, you need to know Fanon. So without knowing Fanon, it's very difficult to understand Rajiv. But certainly, no doubt that Rajiv has given many inputs and those inputs can help us to understand Fanon. If you'll go and read the books written by Fanon, these inputs will help us. So I think that we need to listen this talk maybe twice or thrice, then I think we can get a sense. And I have already requested Rajeeb to share his PPT with me so that you people can
Sure, sure.
directly access what Rajeeb has prepared for us. And we should be very much thankful to Rajeeb for the preparation of PPT. So I am impressed uh, to that PPT only, and preparing a PPT on phenomenology of colonialism. Colonialism basically it's a political concept, or it's a literally concept, right? Philosophy students, they don't use that term frequently. They deal with some other things,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
it is not the specialized area of Rajiv, but I gave or I invited Rajiv
I
because
could
uh,
actually, it is, brother, hi, it is very true that I could manage how I handle this because of one of my areas there, the critical discourse analysis. So that
so I
helps.
understand
That
that
area
Rajiv
helps.
knows phenomenology, but this colonialism and Fanon is something new to him. And
Yes, yes.
since he's a philosophy student, I know that he can manage, right? But you see, he could not finish the talk because there
Yes,
are
yes,
many
yes.
things
That
that in one class you cannot finish, right?
yes.
So I think thanks should be, I mean, we should be thankful to you for taking this challenge, preparing the various slides, and trying to make us understand, giving various inputs. Certainly, these inputs will help us to understand Fanon more clearer in future. So thank you, Rajiv. Thank you for your acceptance. Thank you for your deliberation. So
Thank you,
this
bhai.
is
Thank you
how
so much for
this is
giving
how
me uh,
we have
many,
to
many
end
thanks.
this event.
Many, many thanks, bhai. And many, many thanks to all the students. They rigorously listen and they ask me. So that is very much necessary for me to develop and to learn and to explore my view and to enlarge my thought. So really, really thank you so much to all of you.
Okay, so thank you,
And
Rajiv. We
special
have to
thanks
stop.
to Himanshu Bhai. You given me such a golden opportunity to, to engage my brain and to take a challenge. What you told, that is very true. Take a challenge to do something on that particular topic. That is very, very much. That is a you can say interdisciplinary study. It's an interdisciplinary study
That is
concept.
what I was thinking, Rajiv. For the first time, I mixed, political science philosophy. I think I have seen people in Hyderabad University. I mean, Professor Jyotirmoy Sharma and your Kulkarni sir in Hyderabad University are
Kulkarni
very
sir,
good
Kulkarni sir.
friends. They are very good friends, and they understand each other. So I know the harmonious relation between political and philosophy, but such things are missing in state universities, and I don't see it in Odisha. But somehow I'm trying. Let's see. We will have various meetings with
I am the
you
lucky person. Got
to
the chance
understand.
by you.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I have to stop this recording, Rajiv.
Thank you so much to all, one and all.